You mentioned some new faces. Let's take a look at the top 25 players for this year. This is more of the top 25 most important players, not the best players, not the top 25 who are going to get the most playing time, just the top 25 most important ones. And we start with a kicker, James, because kickers are people too.
Yeah, kickers are people too, Tom. And, Michigan, they almost won that Ohio State game with Ohio State shanking a few kicks here and there. So we saw how quality a kicker can be. And Michigan over the years has had won games and lost games like every college football team. And this is 2 years ago the best best kicker in the country coming out of high school. Sleepover, stayed the night at his house. Quinn Nordine, expecting a lot out of him. Number 24 there, Josh Metellus, going to kind of pop in there at safety. Not a guy, I think of all the new starters this year, he got the least amount of playing time last year, but hearing some decent things about him. But, I guess we'll see what happens out of him. Not exactly sure what to expect. Now, number 23 is maybe one when we get into the depth chart, people are going to be like, what are you talking about there? But it's Brandon Peters. I've got him number 3 in the depth chart right now, Tom. But if Wilton Speight went down, I think Peters would get the nod to be the starter for the rest of the year because they're going to kind of say, okay, what's the expectation for this program going forward? Well, it's going to be Peters because O'Korn isn't going to be there next year. He's a fifth-year senior, so you want to have Peters come in there.
You'd think in that if Speight had to go down in the middle of a game, but you'd probably see O'Korn come in.
True.
But if Peters had a week or so to prep and be prepared, he'd be the one that would be the starter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. O'Korn would come in if an injury, a quarter or two, or maybe the whole rest of the game. Peters is your long-term guy. Or, there's a chance Dylan McCaffrey could make a play there if Speight was out for the year or potentially a career. If it was just the year and Speight is still a third or fourth-year junior, he's got another year of eligibility. So we'd see what happens there. So from there, we've got Peters, then we've got Juwan Bushell-Beatty. So, Tom, this is a guy I didn't have on my initial list, but was not hearing good things the first week or so of fall camp. He's really come on. I've got him going from a backup where I had him. I actually had a true freshman that was going to start in front of him. I've got Bushell-Beatty back in the starting rotation. Number 21, Ty Wheatley Jr., not going to start this year. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be the starter. He's been passed, but he provides such a matchup problem in the red zone that I think he's going to be super important this year.
And Michigan has shown they don't mind using multiple tight ends on the field.
Yeah, especially in certain formations with like 5 tight ends and no running backs they've done before. Maybe that chain one. And then going on from there, Tom, we've got at number 20 is Chuck Filiaga. So this is an interesting one that I had Filiaga as a starter and I had him replacing Bushell-Beatty, but I'm still going to put him in this top 25 because I would say if we go 4 or 5 games into the season after the initial out-of-conference games, I think Filiaga is going to take a starting role, whether it's at guard, whether they kick him out to tackle. I think he's a very versatile guy, but I ultimately think he, by the Purdue, Michigan State, Indiana game 4, 5, 6 is going to be a starter for Michigan, no matter what position it is. I'm not sure. Then we're going to kind of breeze through the sophomore secondaries. Basically, the entire secondary is going to be second-year players this year. So Lavert Hill out of the state of Michigan, his brother also a Michigan football player. At corner, Tyreek Cannell. Actually, he's a third-year player. I'm sorry. So we've got a little bit of depth there. And then David Long out of Southern California. All these guys got playing time last year, but nothing with Michigan having basically 4 seniors in the secondary. Not a ton of playing time. But Lavert Hill and Long are going to be Lavert Hill and Long are going to be 2 guys that we've really got to consider as super important players from Michigan this year, and got to really step up. So moving on from there, we go into where are we going from here?
Ian Bunting.
Ian Bunting, got it. Sorry, little technical difficulties there, folks. So Ian Bunting, Michigan's tight end, he's going to be the guy who gets the starting nod. It's really funny about Ian Bunting is not really anyone was talking about him a year ago. He stepped up when Jake Butt went down in the Orange Bowl game, Tom. Had a couple great catches and has proven himself to be the man at tight end throughout this fall camp. I think he's getting the starting nod for Michigan this year. So, can go on to the top 15 from here. And here's where we get into, Tom, the guys who really have an opportunity in the top 15 for Michigan to be all-conference players, and then the higher we go up in list, this is the potential All-American. So Michael Onwenu, offensive lineman, huge. Kid came into college 380 pounds, has lost 40 pounds, the word is, since January, since the bowl game, and is now slated to start on the offensive line. He's one that, I think for a while they might have put him to defense if he wasn't if he didn't cut weight because he just wasn't able to move, but he's cut some weight, and he's going to be your starter on the offensive line. You've got your starting wide receivers. So breaking news, folks, I am calling it now. Your starting wide receivers, Donovan Peoples-Jones and Kakoa Crawford are your starting wide receivers. So you're going to have a you're going to have a true freshman wide receiver starting, I think, from day one, and then a true sophomore in Kekoa Crawford out of the state of California wearing that famed Michigan #1. So there's your starters. Over to the defensive line, Chase Winovich got a ton of run last year when Frank Clark missed a game. I'm sorry, not Frank Clark. Taco Charleston. I'm dating myself.
Jumping a couple years back.
Yeah, a couple years back. When Taco Charlton missed a game or two last year, Winovich got the start, performed great. He's going to be an all-conference level player. And then Kaliki Hudson, I mentioned him before, stepping in for Jabril Peppers. I expect him to be one of the 2 or 3 better players on the entire defense. So Tom takes us to the top 10. It's very kind of it's isolated on a couple different positions here.
Yeah, Brian Monet there at number 10, who you've got some information there on Monet.
Yeah, I heard a few weeks back, actually about a month or so back, that Monet was a guy that there was rumors he might not show up to fall camp. So if you think back 2 years ago when Harbaugh came, when Jim Harbaugh goes into a season,
praise for
yeah,
Monet.
he ranks his players 1 through 100, like in whatever, and he had Monet in the top 3 up there with. I can't remember who the other player, but Peppers was one of them 2 years ago. I can't remember who the third one, but I think Monet was number 3 player. Got injured.
Willis?
He might have been, yeah. Got injured, missed the entire season in 2015. Came back last year, got beat out for a spot. And 3 years into the program, is he homesick? He's from Utah, and so a lot of rumors there. But last couple weeks, that homesick has gone away, I guess, and now he's back in the good graces of the coach. So expect him to be starter. We mentioned Devin Bush, true sophomore linebacker. Ben Bredesen started last year as a true freshman, one of the rare true freshmen to start on a Michigan football team at offensive line, and he's going to be one of the stars of the offensive line this year. Khalid Hill, dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate, Tom. I don't know about Khalid Hill. I think,
I know that all DJ Khaled does is win. All Hill does is score
touchdowns.
Score TDs.
And you and I talked to Michigan offensive coordinator Tim Drevno on the
did.
phone mid-season last year, and he basically was like, hey, everybody in the country knows that Khalid Hill's getting the ball. We're still giving it to him. So not trying to trick you when you get Khalid Hill gets the ball. Scored a touchdown in the Ohio State game, a great catch and dove over the end zone. Number 6, Mike McCray, the 5th-year senior linebacker. I feel like this
the
guy
only starter returning
on the entire defense. Yeah, I think that Mike McCray has been on Michigan's football roster since like 2005. He's been there at the school this long. That's the kind of player he is.
We mentioned Donovan Peoples-Jones a little bit. Reaction poll for those of you at home here. Which true freshman are you excited about? We've got Peoples-Jones, the other receiver, Tariq Black, who didn't get the top 25.
Yep.
Aubrey Solomon, the talented defensive tackle, that a signing day win for Michigan.
Yep, big time.
And then we're cheating here by picking, take your pick of the offensive linemen because they're people too.
Yeah, I mean,
not sexy, but
offensive linemen are people. That is true. Fact there.
They're the big sexies.
They are, and some bigger than others. I mean, Filiaga is one of the biggest human beings alive, I've heard. People are saying. So mine, Tom, is Donovan Peoples-Jones. There's no question, in my mind at least, he's going to be the Michigan's best true freshman receiver since a young man named Mario Manningham in 2005, who, by the way, caught a touchdown with no time on the clock to beat an undefeated Penn State that season as a true freshman.
He was pretty good.
Pretty good, two-time All-American, two-time All-Big Ten first team at Michigan in his 3 seasons, and we all remember that great catch from Eli Manning in the Super Bowl to beat the Patriots 5 years ago. So I think he's right in that same realm. He's going to bring things that Michigan hasn't had at the wide receiver position in frankly, about a decade or so. A guy who's 6'2", 6'3", who is faster than any player on the field. Yeah, so I'm expecting a lot from him.
I think Jones is my pick as well.
Yeah.
I'll give an honorable mention to Tariq Black, who fared very well in the spring.
Yeah, made some great catches in the spring game. Probably performed better than Peoples-Jones in the spring game. And I actually think, Kekoa Crawford's got a year up on him, but it would not surprise me if when Michigan's lining up in 3 wide receiver sets, that's not Jones and Peoples-Jones and Tariq Black, a majority of the time.
Remember, folks, we are at 100% live, so get your comments in if you have any comments, thoughts, reactions. Producer Brett Scott can bring them up on screen throughout the show. Let's head into the top 5 now, James. The top 5 most important Michigan players. At number 5, Mason Cole.
Yeah, and so funny about this top 5, Tom, this is how young Michigan is only 2 of the top 5 were starters last year, right? Only 2 players were starters last year, and one of them is starting at the same position. So Mason Cole is kicking out. He's actually going to play offensive tackle. He has played in 4 years. I think he might have been Michigan's first true freshman offensive lineman in history to start from day 1 4 years ago. And he's played center, he's played guard. Now he's going to kick out to left tackle because Michigan's so young. But I think if he can develop into that role, and he's played some there a couple years ago, I think he has a chance to be an all Big Ten player, potentially a first 3-round round pick in the NFL draft. But if he doesn't play, punch above his weight class and kind of step up as a senior, Michigan's in a lot of trouble on the offensive line. So then we go to number 4 is Wilton Speight. No matter what the pundits and the scribes are saying out there, Tom, Speight's your starting quarterback. I'm pretty sure the decision has been made. Speight knows he's starting the Florida game, and I think every practice going forward, 15 days to Michigan football, that you're going to see Wilton Speight take every snap with the first team going forward in practice. He'll be your starter 2 weeks from tomorrow in Dallas.
I think we might get some comments on that one. Early in the spring, there were quite a few calls to, hey, let's play Peters.
Well, here's the thing. Speight has lost 3 straight starts. The only win Michigan had in the last 4 games was against Indiana, where, frankly, if we don't remember, people forget, he was injured that game, and O'Korn came in and started. So he's under a lot of pressure, and I think if they lose that Florida game, people are going to be calling for his head. But you also forget that he won 9 games, and those first 9 games threw only 2 interceptions, right? 9 straight games to start the year, got Michigan to number 3 in the country. Yeah.
And then at number 3, a new starter is Chris Evans, who, when the recruiting class was signed last year, it was Kareem Walker was supposed to be the starter, and then Evans just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, where is Kareem Walker? He'll get more snaps probably at kick return this year than he will at running back. But Evans, right out of the gate, I think he had 2 touchdowns in the opening game last year for Michigan. And people are like, who is this kid? He's like the number 3 running back in this class. But he's your, I think, unquestioned starter. But you're going to get, they're pretty deep at running back this year with guys, not necessarily with, you can't say they're super talented because I don't think they're as talented as some other schools like Alabama. But a lot of guys who have a ton of snaps under their belts as college football
and Michigan
players.
Likes to use the committee, so you'll see Evans getting spelled for guys like Ty Isaac and
Karan Higdon, and then even Kareem Walker's probably number 4 running back. But true freshman Omari Samuel from New Mexico is one that I wouldn't be surprised if he bumped above Kareem Walker at some point this season. And what does that have in Kareem Walker? Is he not on the team next year? I don't know.
Seems like it could be a future transfer then at that point. Number 2, as we get to the defensive side of the ball, Maurice Hurst.
Yeah, and these are the best 2. Our number 1 and 2 are the best backup players in college football last season, in my opinion.
11.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. That's starter numbers, not backup numbers.
Those are starter numbers, and so 3 of those 4 players in that Michigan defensive line are playing in the NFL right now. All of them gone, but that basically the second team, which played almost as many snaps as the first team, is your starters this year. And so Maurice Hurst, been around for a while. He's a senior. And Pro Football Focus rated him the number 1 defensive lineman in the country this year in their recent rankings. So that's high praise. So I expect a lot from Mo Hurst. And he probably was Michigan's best lineman the last 5 games of the year last year as a backup.
High praise, especially considering that Taco Charlton kind of clicked on later in the year and propelled that to a first-round pick. But at number 1, and I think this is a consensus number 1, not just from us but from the fans, Rashan Gary.
Yeah, I mean he's basically replaced Jabril Peppers as this year's you're expecting him to have 14 sacks and 100 tackles for loss and probably 6 or 7 interceptions even in a defensive end role. But stupid amounts of hype. NFL.com released their top 100 players recently. Rashan Gary never starting a game. They've got his number 9 player in college football. I think that's a tad high maybe, but he's the only time going back to when the recruiting services kind of started on the internet back in 2000, 2001. Rashan Gary is the only player in the history of ESPN Scout Rivals 24/7 to be the consensus number 1 player in the country in all services in their final ranking. So a lot of praise, best player in the country coming into college last year, and he is one who better step up because he's expected to start this year for Michigan, frankly.
Again, your top 5 one more time: Mason Cole, Wilton Speight, Chris Evans, Maurice Hurst, and Rashan Gary. With Gary at number 1, that brings us to a weigh-in here, and namely, what are your expectations for Rashan Gary this year? At this point, I think the hype has gone way too far in one direction here, where it's like everyone expects him to instantly be Myles Garrett. And I don't know if that's going to happen right away. He's great, but look, he had half a sack last year. I think we maybe pumped the brakes just a little bit.
The expectations of the fan base is Jadeveon Clowney sophomore year, where he took Michigan running back's head off. Can't remember his name. Last name was Vincent Smith's head off, and I think Vincent Smith actually still is in the hospital from that play. I think that's the expectations. It's 5-6 plays throughout the season that you're like, I've never seen that before, and just terrorizing people. And should they change the NFL draft rules for him? That's the expectations of the fans, right? Let them join after a sophomore. So we'll see. But my expectations, Tom, is that he's an all Big Ten player this year. I don't expect All-American. Yeah, he could be, but I would expect all Big Ten first team. And then next year, I expect the mock drafts of 2019 to have him up there, a top 5 player coming out of his junior year.
You can find 2019 mock drafts, and Gary's up there.
Okay, cool. Didn't know that.
That's the expectation, is that he's going to be a very high NFL draft pick.
Have we put out a 2019 mock?
No, we don't do
Okay, I'm putting
2019
on the
mock
content
drafts.
list this week.
right,
Yeah,
cool.
maybe a 2020 mock draft too.